today we're down in chapter 10 of the book of Ecclesiastes, and we're now in the section that where he is giving short, pithy advice. The things that he has to say in this section is almost like that which is in Proverbs, and as we see, he has been emphasizing over and over again the value of wisdom, that wisdom is the greatest thing that you can get in this world. It's greater than riches and rubies and gold and silver, and he goes on showing that the value of wisdom is just unexplainable. Because if you've got wisdom, then you'll be able to obtain these things, plus live a happy life in every other realm. Mitch, would you get me some water, please? I see I'm going to need it. However, if you have all kind of riches and you don't have wisdom, then you're not going to have a happy life because you don't know how to live, and you will be losing your money if you don't have the wisdom to know how to handle it. But now, today, he's going to be talking about some other things concerning this. He starts out and he says, dead flies putrefy the perfumer's ointment and cause it to give off a foul odor. So does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. So now, he's going to show us that if you take this wise man that he's been talking about, a person that has lived with wisdom and honor, the world respects this individual, holds them in high esteem, they're valued highly, maybe some of the greatest people in the world. But his point is, if a man spends his life building up his reputation so that it is just absolutely outstanding in every way, all he has to do is just do some foolish thing. Just do one big, dumb thing, and that can ruin that individual's reputation. And he shows it here by flies, that if a perfumer has ointment, and has this ointment that smells just so beautiful, and yet a fly flies in it and dies, that fly can putrefy the whole thing. It'll cause the whole bowl of ointment to take on a different smell and ruin the whole thing. So just like this perfumer can work for years and years in developing this bowl of perfume, beautiful ointment, all it takes is a dead fly to fly into it, die, and then lay there and decay and putrefy that. He said that's the way it is with a person's reputation. They can work all their life building up their reputation, but one foolish thing can ruin that reputation. He said, so does a little folly to one respected for wisdom and honor. We can see this happening in many realms, especially as we look at the people who are reputed to be great people and people in government and so forth, and then just one thing can take them down and ruin their reputation in there. We see it happening all the time in this realm. But remember, it happens to us also. Then he says, a wise man's heart is at his right hand, but a fool's heart at his left. Now, I've always taken this as I read it in one way. All of the smart people in the world will tell you it means something else. So maybe we better take all the smart people in the world that's in there. I've always taken it that a wise man's heart in his right hand. In other words, where's your heart? I use my right hand to show this. A fool, where's your heart? He gives you the wrong information. But as I say, the wise people, they say right and left always signifies a certain thing, and it does. Right hand is always the best position to be. If you want to sit on the right hand of a ruler. That's the best position to be. God told Jesus, come and sit on my right hand. So the right hand of anything is the position of honor and dignity. The left hand is of lesser importance. And so he said, the wise man's heart is on his right hand. In other words, if let's take my heart, let's take my mind. Remember, when it talks about a heart, why it's talking about the mind. So let's take my mind. Now, if I have wisdom, my wisdom is going to be standing on my right hand. It's going to be standing here, just like I would call up a very wise individual and say, stand on my right hand. And so my heart is going to be always looking around, how will it benefit me? If it were on the left, like a fool, then you just do whatever you want to do, and you don't take in consideration that whatever you do is going to have significant impact on your life. So always keep that in mind. Everything you do tomorrow has a significant impact on the rest of your life. If you do wise things, it probably is not going to shoot you into riches and fame and all of those things. It doesn't work that fast when you're doing good things. But if you do a foolish thing, then it's going to destroy you down there. I'll never forget one time when I was preaching in Nevada, that I got up one morning and there's a preacher in town, and the headlines of the newspapers said so-and-so was arrested last night and is now in jail for writing a $10,000 bad check. And I couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe it. You know, it'd be like kind of getting up and reading Paul Hawthorne or Larry Haverstock or someone who was arrested last night with the FBI. And so another guy and I went down. We had to go see if it was the same guy. Yeah, we went down. There he was, yep. I did it, and I got mad, and somebody did something to me, and it was a bad thing that the guy did to him. But somebody did something to me, and I got mad, and so he told his story. Well, of course, that's the end of his life. There was a middle-aged preacher, a well-known preacher, had a big reputation. Bang, one thing, gone. And over and over and over, we hear of these things happening. So keep in mind, this is true of every one of us. Tomorrow, as you go through life, you live a godly life, and it will enhance you. All you have to do is make one big, stupid mistake, and it can ruin you for the rest of your life. Then he says, even when a fool walks along the way, he lacks wisdom, and he shows everybody that he is a fool. So it's talking about being a wise person and a fool. I think we all know what this means, that there are times when you meet a person for the first time, and you don't have to be around him, but maybe, 15 seconds until you're starting to look the guy over, and you visit with him for 2 minutes and go away, and you might turn to somebody and say, what do you think of that guy? And so what it's really saying is that a fool, by his very actions, he goes around and he advertises as he walks down the street and tells everybody, look, I'm a fool. See me. You can see it in the way he dresses, the way he walks, the way he talks, what he says, and such things as this. So he says, just try to work on that wisdom as much as you possibly can. In 4, if the spirit of the ruler rises against you, do not leave your post, for conciliation pacifies great offenses. Now, if you're around your, ruler, I guess that would be your boss, or any policeman, or any kind of an authority, and they rise up against you, what do? Well, instead of getting mad and leaving, you be conciliatory. You be gentle, because gentleness and kindness will alleviate this great tension. So you can imagine that somebody, maybe in the president's cabinet, and they're having a meeting, and so they ask this guy, and the guy says, Mr. President, here's what I would do. And so the president says, no, I'm not about to do that. That's stupid. And the guy, it may make him mad because he's right. But if he jumps up and leaves, he's in trouble. The ruler is not in trouble. So keep in mind who you're dealing with. And always keep in mind that being kind and gentle is the best procedure rather than getting mad and jumping up and leaving. Then he says, 5, there is an evil that I have seen under the sun. Now, notice how many times he's talked about under the sun, which we've already said 100 times, means life upon this earth, living upon this earth, living under the sun here. Now, I've seen this evil. Now, again, when the Old Testament uses the word evil, it doesn't use it in the sense of being bad, immoral, naughty. It doesn't use it in that sense. It uses it in the sense of being a bad thing. It's a bad thing happened to me last night. My car wouldn't start, or I had an accident. And they would say an evil thing happened to me. I had an accident. And so he said, now here's a bad thing that I've seen. As an heir proceeding from the ruler, folly is set in great dignity. While the rich sit in low places, I have seen servants on horses, while princes walk on the ground like servants. Now, he said, here's another thing I've seen, which is a bad thing. He said, I've seen it when rulers make big mistakes. Now, when they make mistakes, their mistakes are big. And so what do they do here when they make mistakes? Well, he says, I've seen it here, and it's an heir proceedeth from the ruler. And then he explains what it is. He said, rulers sometimes take people, foolish people, and put them in high authoritative places. Now, when a ruler who's supposed to have wisdom takes a foolish individual, puts them in high authoritative places, as he explains here, he says, they sat in the rich sat in the lowly places, and the servants ride on horses and so forth. That's bad. That's bad. Now, you might think about this and see it if you want to look in governmental realms. All through your life, you look and you see which ruler is able to rule the country the best. And you will find it is the ruler that is able to glean and gather wise men around him. Now, if he can gather these wise men around him, he doesn't have to have so much wisdom. He goes out here and got 30, 40 really wise, experienced people, and a problem comes up, he can glean wisdom from them. They can pour it in, and just think, as they pour in, here it is, all this, they pour in this wisdom in what is the best for the country and what the decisions should be made. He can make good decisions. But let's replace them with 50 fools. And you take a ruler, and he gathers around him his buddies, all of his buddies, everybody that's going to tell him what he would like to hear, all of the people that have ideas that are not good for the country, not good for him. That ruler is going to be in trouble. And that's what this is talking about. He said, I've seen this happen. I've seen it happen where these rulers do this, and it's an heir that proceeds from the ruler when they do that. Now, for those of us who are smaller, we might try to keep that in mind and try to think, okay, how could that apply to me? Well, it can apply to us as we look at our rulers, and it can apply to us when we have major decisions to make. When we need to make major decisions not nearly as big as the country that we are having. Right now, we having this big situation with Iran, and what is the decision we should make Should we bomb them? Should we? And you go on and on. Boy, these are gigantic decisions to be made. Who do you want to make these decisions? Do you want a bunch of fools, or do you want a bunch of wise men that are guiding the president to make this? What about us? Well, our decisions will not be that big, but it would behoove us to say, I'm going to gather about me some wise men. If I need to make a major decision about something, I'm going to seek out some people who I trust, people that I know will tell me the truth, people that will give me some good advice. And so don't ever, ever, ever underestimate the power that there is in that. Then in verse 8, he gives us some statements here that these are things all of us know, but we need to be reminded of it. He who digs a pit will fall into it. Now, this is not saying every time you dig a pit, dig a hole in the ground, you're going to fall in a hole in the ground. But it says, if your job is digging pits, if your job is digging holes in the ground, somewhere along the line you're going to fall in that hole. Then he says, and whosoever breaks through a wall will be bitten by a serpent. Now, a wall is a stone wall, a wall that they build of stones around property. And anytime that you build a stone wall, there's going to be little crevices in there. And then it's well known that snakes will hide in those crevices. So he says, if that is your job, and you're going to take that on, and you're going to go and break through a wall somewhere, keep in mind you can be bit by a serpent. Then he says, he who quarries stones, that is the guy that cuts stones out of the mountain, may be hurt by them. If that's your life's work, you're going to have a rock to fall on you. You're going to bust up your foot. You're going to get hurt somewhere along the line. And he who splits wood may be endangered by it. So if you're a woodcutter, your chances of the axe slipping and cutting your foot, it's pretty great. What's the lesson? What he's saying is, whatever you do, there are dangers involved in that. And if you have wisdom, you will look for those dangers. And you're going to try to keep those things from happening. Today, I guess we call it safety first. And so he just says, always keep in mind, whatever you do, there are dangers involved. Now, you can expand this out. You can keep it if you want to, right down to cutting wood and some silly little things like this. But whatever you do, if you go into business, there are dangers involved. If you're going to take a trip, there are dangers involved. If you're going to build a new house, there are dangers involved. Whatever you're going to do, there are dangers involved. And so you got to keep these things in mind if you live a life of wisdom. Then he says, if the axe is dull and one does not sharpen the edge, then he must use more strength, but wisdom brings success. Again, wisdom. Well, this is something everybody knows. If the axe is dull, you've got a problem in chopping wood. So what do? Well, you sharpen the axe. Well, any fool knows that. I mean, why would you talk about that? Well, you take a guy like me, and I expect if we could get these other guys to tell the truth, it's happened to them many times, me more than other people, but you'll be out cutting wood and your axe is dull. I need to sharpen this axe, but man, I need to be somewhere here in a few minutes. I need to go, so I'm just going to go ahead with this dull axe. And so you hit and you chop and you put your strength to it. And another guy over here, a guy with wisdom, he'll stop. He'll go over, pick up the file, sit down, and sharpen his axe. Now here's the feeling that a guy like me has. While he's sitting over there on a log, sharpening his axe, I'm over here just beating this log to death with my dull axe. And I feel that he's goofing off. I feel that, man, look, we need to be through here in 30 minutes, and he's just sitting over there on the log while I'm over here working so hard. But the problem is he gets up with a sharp axe, and then he starts chopping, and bing, 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 and he cuts more wood than I do. So he points out, he said, always keep this in mind. Let's take something as simple as cutting wood. You're either going to keep your axe sharp, which takes time and effort, or you're going to have to put the power to it, to much more power in order to overcome that dullness of the axe. Well, everybody says, I know that. I know that. So what does wisdom tell us? In every job you have, whatever it is that you do, you look at it, and you have two options. You have an option of when you come to a problem, you can just bulldoze through the problem and use up strength. Or you might sit back and say, I'm going to take the time off and fix the problem and do this so that I can pick up speed. So that happens to us every day. And with these little proverbs, he's teaching us great lessons that we can use in whatever job we have. It doesn't make any difference what the job is. Then he says in 11, a serpent may bite when it is not charmed. The babbler is no different. So he said, now, a babbler, a guy that blah, 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 just talking all the time, just keeps his mouth going, just blah, 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 thinks that he has the wisdom to talk about any subject on the world and starts talking and giving advice, blah, 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 blah. The babbler, now, it says, is like a snake here. And it says, now the charmer, he can get bit if he hadn't charmed his snake. Now this is an interesting thing because nobody, as far as I know, understands what causes those cobras to do that. You've all seen them. You know, the charmer sits there and he blows his horn and he goes like this and the cobra goes like this. And at any time the cobra could strike him. But the guy does this all of his life. All of his life. Lives to be 90 years old. Turns the job over to his son and he does this. So you say, well, it's the blowing of the horn. Well, no, they say it's not that because the snake doesn't have ears, couldn't hear. Well, then it's the movement of the charmer. Well, it may be. But somebody else takes the horn and gets in front of the snake and starts going like this. And instead of the snake going like this, he bites him. And so the charmer comes out, and they still don't know what it is. This is one of those unknown scientific things. The charmer comes out, and he knows how to charm that snake. So he does whatever he does to get this snake in the mood of just rocking back and forth with the charmer so he can sit there and blow on his horn all day and collect money. Now, he said, if he doesn't charm the snake first, he can get bit. And it said, now that's the way it is with a babbler. A babbler is just as dangerous. So keep that in mind when you're dealing with somebody that knows everything and gives you advice on everything that there is. You can sure end up getting bit. The words of a wise man's mouth are gracious, but the lips of a fool swallow him up. The words of his mouth begin with foolishness, and the end of his talk is raving madness. Again, it's this babbler, this fool is different. A wise man's words are gracious. They're kind. They're gentle. They'll do you good. But the mouth of a fool will swallow you up, just like that snake is going to get you. It'll swallow you up. It says his talk ends or starts out with foolishness, and it ends with raving. And so what you expect to come out of a fool is never going to be wisdom. It's always going to be something else. So listen to wise people rather than the fool. In verse 14, A fool also multiplies words. No man knows what it is to be. Who can tell him what will be after him? The fool, the labor of fools wearies him. Let's just take 14. The fool here multiplies words. Just thinking, the more he talks, the more wisdom he has expelled to you. But it said that's not the way it works with him. He said he doesn't even know what he's talking about. He doesn't know what it's going to be. He doesn't know what the future holds. But a babbler, a fool, he can tell you. He can tell you what's going to happen in the election. He can tell you whether Obama's going to win or not. He can tell you who this is going to be. He can tell you what we need to do with Iran. He can tell you when we need to pull out of Afghanistan. He can tell you what's going to happen to the stock market. He can tell you when to buy into this and when to do this and blah, blah, blah. When it says he knows nothing about what's going to be in the future. Then the labor of fools wearies them, for they do not even know how to go to the city. Now, we understand that, and you probably said it many times yourself. That guy's so dumb he doesn't even know how to go uptown. That's all that this is saying. Many of our proverbs today comes from little sayings like this. So the guy, he doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't even know how to go uptown. Then a couple interesting things to close out the chapter here. He said, "Woe to you, O land, when your king is a child and your princes feast in the morning. Blessed are you, O land, when your king is the son of nobles and your princes feast at the proper time, for strength and not for drunkenness." So he said, now, here is a good thing for a country, a land. A land is blessed when it is ruled by experienced people. It is cursed when it's ruled by a child. Now, when you get into the kingships and the king dies and the oldest son takes over, we read in the Bible and in other places where sometimes that child is no more than 6 or 7 years old. Well, here it is, the king, the child, 6 or 7 years old. What that child has to do is he has to depend on what his uncles and aunts and mom and other people tell him, because his word is binding. And he can make a lot of foolish mistakes. And so he said, now, a land is cursed when they fall under that kind of leadership. But a land is blessed when the sons of nobles rule. What does it mean, the sons of nobles? You say, do you have to be in nobility to rule? No, Abraham Lincoln wasn't there, and he made it. But when you think who makes the best rulers, is it the guy who has never ruled, the guy who has never been in those positions, the guy who is awestruck by the power he has and by the luxury that he has around him? Is that a good ruler? Or would you rather have somebody who is not awestruck? They have grown up, they've seen this. They're not impressed by the luxury and the glitter and the gold and the power and all of this. And they've seen by example what you should do here and what you should do there. And so he's just saying, these are the kind of people that make the best rulers for your land. And he said, woe to you when a ruler starts drinking in the morning and starts dining and eating for drunkenness rather than to be filled. And again, these rulers, every time they sit down at the table is just full of gorgeous food, and you take a guy like me and I'd want to get some of all of it and just hog it down. Well, woe to a guy that does that. What you do is, if you're the right kind of ruler you should be, whatever's set in front of you, however the food is, however magnificent the table is, eat what you need, drink what you need, and don't go any farther. Eat for your strength, not for a party or for drunkenness. Then he says, because of laziness, the building decays, and through idleness of hands, the house leaks. Again, another little proverb we can all see that, and again, giving advice to these rulers, by neglecting to take care of things as they happen, just idle, just I'll wait. In a little while, your house is going to fall down. You need to keep it up. You need to keep it up. Now, it's not just interested in the house. This is with your life. Whatever problems you have, whatever comes in your life, take care of it. Take care of it in the right way, and don't get boggled down with all kind of debt and problems and lawsuits and all the things you can get boggled down into. Take care of your problems one at a time. Then a feast is made for laughter and wine makes merry, but money answers everything. In other words, just if you have money, you can have whatever you want, is what he's saying. So don't ever underestimate the power that there is in money. We've already learned that money is a defense, just like an army is a defense. Money is a defense. Money here can buy whatever you want. And so that's not a bad thing to have. But we've learned as we go through, it's how you use the money. And you've got to keep in mind, wisdom is greater than money, even though money will do these things. Then, here's another proverb that all of us have seen. Do not curse the king, even in your thought. Do not curse the rich, even in your bedroom. For a bird of the air may carry your voice, and a bird of flight may tell the matter. Now, there's a proverb, and in books I've read, they say in every country in the world has this proverb. And that is, be careful what you say, because a little bird may tell it. Sometimes somebody may come to you and they might say something, and I heard you said this about me. Well, who told you I said that about you? I only told my wife, who, little bird told me. It's just like a little bird's out there on the sill, or a little bird flew by and they pick it up and they hear it. And that proverb, little bird told me, is in every country in the world. So what he's saying is, watch your mouth. Be careful. Be careful what you say about people. If you don't want what you say about people to be repeated and come out in public, don't say it. Because when you say it, even in your bedroom, it says there may be a little bird in the attic that hears it and they fly around and tell somebody. It's magic how you can find these things that come out. So be careful what you say. Okay, our time is up.